chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' Crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another redemptive episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 301, recorded on Thursday, January 7th, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the winner of the January poll pick, which was Insidious. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
How's it going, everybody? Did you hear that sweet new fucking sound that we heard here, guys?
Yeah.
That new intro?
That's a hot track.
We got a little... Hell hooked us up again.
Is that a slapzilla? Is that what the kids would call it? A slapzilla?
I don't know. I don't interact with children, Bob, under court order. But
That's for the
I will say, yeah. But I will say that it is fucking amazing, and it's so great that we're being benefactored by hell so much.
That's exactly right.
Satan is really stepping up to make this show a high quality item.
Straight Chilling is subsidized by hell. Last but not least, also calling in from the Saxonville, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy, the Fervor Stains. Boys, we got a new look, we got a new sound, and back on the behind the scenes, so put your best face forward.
That's right.
I heard that as fervor with a V.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be really amped up tonight.
Fervor
You are
Stains.
correct.
I am filled with a fervor that cannot be quenched.
I think that makes the movie a totally different kind of movie.
Oh, yeah. I call it
Fervor.
a place I like to call the Fur Burger.
Damn. That's we got 3 different movies going on here.
Might have to.
That's the porn parody.
Yeah,
Still coming.
Might have to see if that
Insidious.
exists. Insidious?
Insidious.
Inside of us.
Oh, man. That's got to exist. Feels good to be back from hell, doing another show with you boys. Before we do,
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
I'm
be
prepared.
Before we get into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. Here is another reminder. The February poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this February. The theme of which, Juice, you chose all 3 movies. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yes, this is something new we have never done before. We are doing for this new year. Each one of us will get a month in which we get to pick all 3 movies in the poll pick and the overall topic. So I picked thrillers. I wanted to choose 3 movies that I felt like we wouldn't talk about normally on this podcast, but were close enough, horror adjacent, that it would be appropriate to pick a theme with these 3 movies in it. So the 3 movies that I picked were No Country for Old Men, Old Boy, and Seven. And that's the Korean Old Boy, not the American remake. So the OG. So yeah. Bob,
I thought that was an interesting choice. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Randy.
I thought it was an interesting choice because, we're notorious for not really sticking to genre at all.
Yeah, it's true. It's just without people picking them for Patreon picks. We've covered Ghost, but somebody paid us to do that, and some of
That's
that,
true.
it would be hard to let Rob bend the rules enough to let us, these movies slide in. So I figured I'd go ahead and force.
I think it's interesting that you're implying the iron fist from Bob in a month where you have carte blanche on anything.
Yeah, but I was proud of these picks, and they are all
picks.
movies that I love and movies that I think would make really interesting discussions. And I'm curious, Bob, how those numbers looking so far?
They're looking mighty fine. Right now, Old Boy is definitely in the lead, like handily in the lead.
Whoa, the Koreans come out on top again, I see.
Yet again.
He's the oldest boy.
No Country and Seven are tied, but they're a good ways back. So it's still early in the month. We'll see what happens.
All right.
Yeah, get your votes in before the end of January. Also, regarding Patreon news, we do have not one, but two brand new Patreon supporters.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah, we got to give some shouts outs to Jamie M. and our mailman Kelvin. Thanks for the mad support.
Kelvin Mang. Yes, thank you.
Thanks for delivering our mail, Mang, and also for supporting us on the Patreon.
Delivering our mailmang. What?
We
have
have
corrupted the English language too far. We've gone too far.
We appreciate the support, guys. Every dollar you guys give to us goes right back into the show. And as is tradition around these parts, we owe you both the straight chilling salute. This one goes out to Jamie and Kelvin. Here we go.
Slap me in the ass.
Whoa. And one more.
One more.
Oh, God. Slap me in the ass.
Whoa, these new bumps over here. What are we doing, man?
Thanks, Crypty.
What are we doing?
What are we doing over here?
Look, fucking the HRF from hell got us the Crypt Keeper, guys. We got him. We got the Crypt Keeper.
The rebrand is in full swing.
Yeah, it is.
It is indeed. Also, just a quick recap of everything else we've already dropped on our Patreon page for you in the first week of the new year. We've got 2 mini casts. So if you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to exclusive episodes that are only on Patreon. Got an episode up there reviewing The Pale Door, which is a new release. It's a horror Western. It's got Pat Healy in it. Also, Juice, you talked about a Netflix docuseries, right?
Yep, called The Ripper, which is not about Jack the Ripper, but kind of like a pseudo copycat of Jack the Ripper, a serial killer in England in the late 70s, early 80s who killed all women, some prostitutes. So yeah, it was an interesting little docuseries.
All right. And also, we do have an hour-long clip reel that sort of takes highlights from the past 100 episodes and chops them up, puts them all together. It's something we do every 100 episodes, and that is exclusive to Patreon as well. If you support us just at any level, you have access to that, which has...
Around here, that means big money.
Yeah, that was an hour long. Whew.
Yeah, and it's got audio that you can't hear anywhere else, just there. What else?
Well,
what else
and if you want to listen to every episode, but that's on you.
But it had some exclusive.
Stuff you cannot.
Does it have some exclusive
anywhere else?
Yeah.
I have not gotten to it yet.
What, Randy?
Not like every episode that we
it
ever
was
put
from
out.
the live show.
To it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I
Audio
forgot
from
about
the
that.
live show. Outtakes.
Man, we are just spoiling bitches out here.
Whoa.
It's true. Also, if you are watching the behind the scenes right now, I have on a brand new Straight Chilling t-shirt. Bam.
Whoa, new swag. Part of the rebrand.
On TeePublic.
Oh, shit.
Bam. Bam.
Is that the gravestone model, Bob?
It is indeed courtesy of you and your talent. Thanks.
And hell.
Oh,
and
the power of hell flows through me. What can I say?
Mostly hell.
I sold my soul, and that was the most I could get for it, was that t-shirt.
Check out our hot new merch over on tpublic.com/straightchilling. Podcast 1, I believe, is the URL. Juice, you got some YouTube stuff. What's up?
Yeah, new YouTube video up on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/straight chilling podcast. And it was another top 5 Tuesday this past Tuesday. And this time I talked about top 5 most anticipated horror films coming out in 2021. And that is also part of the rebrand. So flashy new look, courtesy of Hell and Randy G. Landy, of course.
Oh, God, yes. Come with me.
Yes. And also, thank you to everyone who has been supporting us over on YouTube. We are like so close to hitting the 1,000 subs mark. And that's a big deal because we get a lot of extra perks that come with that. So if you haven't, hop over there and subscribe to us. Help us hit that 1,000 mark. And there's going to be some new content going up there this year and back to behind the scenes, which is something we did for a while. We stopped and now we're coming back for this new year.
All right. Plenty of audio and video to slime your ears and eyeballs into. Check it all out.
Yes, sir.
I think that's it as far as housekeeping. Is this house clean?
This house is clean.
Thank God for that.
All right.
Or some fancy boys over here.
So fancy.
Randy, oh, damn it. Oh, I wish I got a spit take. A spit take. It was so close.
You don't have that kind of power over me.
Wow.
So close.
Well, let's go and get into the main event. We're talking about Insidious, and we're going to kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All of this is like new to us as well. I love how we're like.
Oh.
It's not to me.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Well, I think
Well,
Rob-
it kind of is to me, I guess. I don't know. We seem surprised, anyways.
I
All
have-
right. Sorry, Bob. Back to the back of the box.
I have heard these before. Insidious from 2010. The synopsis as brought to you by IMDb is as follows. It says, a family looks to prevent evil spirits from trapping their comatose child in a realm called the Fervor.
The fervor.
Ooh, sounds like an energetic place. Lots of calisthenics and jumping jacks being done.
There's a lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And also, like, when you put it that way, it sounds like a much sillier movie, it seems like it's a very bombastic idea to put down into a little snippet like that.
Yeah, there's some
Silly
interesting
shit.
stuff going on in this movie for sure, which is why we're talking about it for the second time, redemption style.
That's right.
As we do every January.
Well, for you guys.
Oh, yeah. So I know we've seen this before, like probably several times, so I'm not going to ask you guys. But would you recommend people check this out? Randy?
Yeah, I would. I think, I'll get into the reasons for that, I think, a little bit later, but primarily I would say that it's a pretty solid watch. I think that any horror fan's going to watch this and get a little something out of it. You know, I've heard some dissent from people that don't really like it so much, but nobody's ever, as far as I've seen, said that it's like the worst movie they've ever seen or that it's a waste of time, as far as I know. So I think for a horror fan, you're going to do a lot worse than this, or you could do a lot worse than this. I mean,
Yeah. What about you, Juice?
I was surprised to look back, and according to the spreadsheet, I'm not sure how accurate it is with the early films, but this is like episode 9. I didn't realize it was so far back.
yeah.
It was me. Randy did miss that one. It was me, Bob, Jack, and Ross. And at the time I rated it a 4. So I'm curious to see where I'll end up this time after our discussion. So I have seen it. It is a movie I'm actually very familiar with. I would recommend it. It's early James Wan, and it's in my mind, it sticks out as a movie. The Conjuring came out 4 years after this one, I think. But in my mind, this was like a turning point for the decade, coming into like the 2010s for where kind of horror was headed. James Wan was still fresh. He had only done, I think, like Saw before this is in the horror realm. So
And Dead Silence.
Did he? I couldn't remember which one came out first. Okay. Dead Silence
came out first.
2007. Okay.
Yeah.
So early James Wan, when he was really kind of blazing the trail, and I think it's a staple in a way. I think it's interesting to now look back at it because we're almost like 12 years removed, which is crazy.
Fucking nuts.
I know, but it really does stand out in my mind, and it is a movie I'm very familiar with, and I think it should be a good, interesting, updated talk about it now.
You're only 11, 12 when this came out?
I know, so young back then, 12 years ago. So yeah, it's just
Right.
10 years old for the
This
time.
bit is
Totally.
as evergreen as Soju himself.
Just keep it rolling. Rolling. Bob,
Yeah.
would you recommend this film? You obviously reviewed it before.
Yeah. Juice, you age like the child in The Mandalorian. Now that I've seen it, I can reference that fucking show finally.
Well, I haven't finished it. No spoilers.
Now that you've
Bob.
seen it, now that you've seen it, I cannot get your references from it.
You're welcome. So yeah,
I feel welcome.
you should. Yeah, James Wan is sort of become a staple in horror, and this is one of the several movies that is the reason that's the case. This is sort of this one sticks out in my mind for whenever we did like our top 10 of the decade. This one I think was on all of our lists. I believe we talked about it a little bit. And Juice, like you said, it almost set the tone for the decade in a way because it was very influential. It's super low budget. It was James Wan. He was still kind of proving himself. You know, he did Saw, which was a big deal, but also very low budget. But this just sort of like solidified that you're like, yeah, this guy can definitely make a horror movie, and he continued to do so and prove himself time and time again. It's interesting how it aged, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit here. But definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it. And if you're a fan of ghost movies, haunted house movies, this is a solid one. Definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah. I don't know.
Hearty recommend for the most part.
This is kind of a red letter movie. It's like we got this is the third Blumhouse release. Oren Peli was still involved at that point. I think I don't know if he still is or not, but I haven't heard his name uttered in the halls of horror for some time now.
I'm sorry,
for whatever reason. No, it's all good to me. I don't mind Oren.
Let's drop the spoiler warning real quick, and then we can kind of start wading into the pool that is Insidious. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Spoiler warning.
You've been warned. I want to start this conversation by reminding everybody, because I had forgotten that this movie is PG-13. It's not an R-rated movie. Yeah. And it's got some pretty legitimate scares. I know a lot of people are adverse to PG-13 horror films, but I think this would be a solid example as to how that doesn't really matter. You know, it's not super bloody.
It doesn't necessarily matter.
It does. Right. Yeah. PG-13 does not immediately create a bad horror movie. That's not a formula.
I mean, and that seems to be the talking point for horror for a long time, and with good reason. It's kind of a losing record a lot of the time.
Once we go through once we go through it a little bit, I want to, I guess, talk, because there is a little bit of gore, a little bit of violence, I guess. But let's get back to it. I want to get back to that a little further on in the discussion.
Fervor on in the discussion.
Yeah.
Fervor into discussion.
Mm-hmm. The title card on this movie is one of my favorite title cards of all time. It's sort of
totally.
It opens up. You get like 10 seconds of the camera moving through the house, and it's all creepy looking, and then it zooms in on the bride's face, and then you drop Insidious in big bold red letters, and you've just got those loud strings just like chittering away or whatever, and it's like loud and abrasive and jarring. It's like the title card is a jump scare, basically. I love that it's
it kind of is, and that's actually true. Like, this movie does a lot with the jump scare, and I mean, I think that Joe Bob said something to the effect once that, you know, people give the jump scare a bad rap, but it's just sort of a tool in your toolbox. So it's his point of view, and which is absolutely true. And there are good ways to use it and bad ways to use it. And I would say that this movie does a great job with just about every jump scare it has, and not like making it so cheap. You know what I mean? And not having it really signal itself too early, at least from my experience with it.
I agree.
I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
They feel earned for sure. And also he does a lot with like sleight of hand that makes his jump scares feel like they're not cheap. Like, you might feel something coming, but it's not going to come from where you think it's going to come. It's still going to surprise you, even if you expect something. It's not going to be necessarily exactly what you expect or how you expect it to happen.
That's true. Like, there's that bit with the kid. Is that what you were thinking of too?
Yes, exactly.
There's a child ghost, which does a great job. This is the famed tiptoe through the tulips scene.
Well, one of two.
Yeah.
One of two. But we have what's her name? Renee, the lead, the mother of this family. She's at home alone doing her own thing. And there's this great shots where, a ghost is hidden in plain sight sort of thing, kind of predating the Hill House approach of concealing some ghosts in the background. And then you have this moment where she sees a kid who's like clearly a ghost. She's suspicious at this point. She follows the kid into a bedroom. She sees some shoes in this bureau that's got like a bottom area for shoes and then like the cupboard, and she goes over and she pulls the curtain aside from the shoes area, and it's just shoes, and she's like, and then like split second later the bureau bursts open and a kid runs by
laughing.
Doing the classic creepy kid laugh. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like James Wan with this whole thing is he's not only like doing those sorts of things, but he's also using like really like broadly effective horror tropes, like the giggling kids or the creepy smile stare. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that shit going on in this movie.
Something that
the weird way like people or like the ghosts move, some like where
it's like they
skipping
jump
scenes or whatever. Or
they do sort of like The Ring, but without as much of the VHS distortion. It's just like snap cuts.
Something I was thinking about in like the tactics that James Wan uses here, like it's very low budget, obviously, so he can only do what he can do. But he's basically using like the same effects, I guess, like practical effects that like William Castle would use or something back in like the 50s or the 60s. It's just like people with face paint and like with a holding their mouth in a goofy way or something, and they're just sort of like all of a sudden in your face, like out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. It's nothing super fancy, like the Darth Maul demon here I guess isn't effective for everybody, but it still creeps me out at least a little bit. I don't know. It's in the way that you use it, as they say.
It is.
The introduction of that character was interesting.
Mm. Yeah, it always was effective for me. This time I was watching this movie, since I'm so familiar with it, under a little bit more critical and analytical eye. And I came up with a couple of things I didn't really pick up on before.
Me too, man.
Yeah. But the one thing about that one is I have heard the critiques, and even Danielle was on recently actually to fill my spot, I think. But when I was listening back, she had mentioned about Insidious, and how she just thought it was very silly the way that this thing looked. And I think there's a scene where we get like a full face of him when he's in his little workshop and he's doing the thing, and I think that might be the rug pull a little bit, because I think everything before that is pretty like in the shadows. It's part of jump scares. It's either like somebody does a sketch of him or he shows up right behind the dude's face. But that scene specifically, you're just like right in his face, and he's like, sure. And there's like some tropes too. Like there's like some creepy puppets, and the tiptoe through the tulips is playing. I could see where that just wouldn't be sold for a lot of people when you're just right up in that demon's face. And some of these things are very just kind of tropey.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of unapologetically tropey in that area, though. And to kind of build off what you were saying about where this monster sort of like falls off for me, I kind of had the same experience where I was looking at it a little more critically than I did the first time. When I first saw this movie, I was like, I feel like I had a lot more like just steam power behind it, where I was like, wow, this is like I would credit this movie with being one of a few that got me like legitimately interested in the horror genre. After a few years of just sort of being like, well, I like my Evil Deads and shit, and not really paying much attention to the genre. Anyway, but there's this moment where the monster, whatever, I don't know what you want to call him, but the demon is chasing them from that studio, and that's where it kind of falls apart for me, because there's a couple of shots that really didn't work as well as you would want. They tried to conceal it as best they could, or tried to cover it as best they could, but like when the hooves start running and it's just a shot of the hooves, it definitely looks like a dude slamming down some prosthetic hooves.
There's no weight, you can tell.
There's no weight to it. It looks like the fakery that it is. And then after that, there's this shot where they CG a little bit. They CG this monster clamoring across the walls, but it's not like, it's like he's doing it like you would expect a fucking anime character or something to do it, where he's like crushing through the walls.
Yeah.
And he's like somehow too slow to catch this normally running father and son through a hallway.
Also, too, he pops out and grabs the kid like from a closet, but then disappears and then appears underneath the bed, and it's like he's trying to get a hold of the kid. But that chasing, it just, from the physics and the logic of it, just doesn't make sense.
Right. I would argue,
would have got him several times.
Yeah. I would argue though that like the one thing that kind of saves that, or like the one way I could reason that away, if you want to subscribe to this, you can, but you could say like, this is a dreamlike state that he's in. This is, the further is more or less a stand-in for dreamland. So to have something that's chasing you, that's grabbing your foot, but you still manage to just barely get away, constantly just barely getting away. And even though you know that you're slower than this thing, you're still outrunning it just by a little bit. Like that's very dreamlike. That's very much in the realm of dream, being chased by something that you can neither escape nor actually be caught by, you know? So I don't know. You could rationalize it that way. For me, I can definitely see the argument that kind of like cuts logic a little bit down. And there's like, that's kind of where the real negatives for me like chime in here with this movie, is with sort of like some of the logic and some of the, if you start to interrogate like the internal logic of this movie, it really doesn't hold very much water, I don't think. I don't know what you guys think about that, but like if you really start to like, go ahead, Bob.
It reminds me a little bit of Nightmare on Elm Street, where like if you all of a sudden believe in yourself and your powers, like you can kind of do whatever you want. Like Owen Wilson is like fighting that creature that looks kind of like Glenn Danzig.
I'm sorry,
Owen Wilson.
Patrick Wilson. Whoa. If only Owen Wilson was in this movie. One of those white dudes that's in the movies. I don't know. Where he's like getting his ass beat by this Glenn Danzig looking ghosty, and then he's like, "Get away from me," and pushes him and beats
and then
his ass.
Kamehamehas his ass away.
He does. The anime,
which is stupid because then immediately following that is when he has to deal with the demon, and that never comes into play at all. It really is just the world building does suffer here. And the thing about this movie is, it feels like it, and it always has kind of felt like the younger brother in a way to like The Conjuring. The Conjuring. And it's got, the thing about this is it's got more bold and unique ideas than maybe what The Conjuring has. But the craft suffers here a little bit, like the world building and the logic behind that, when you have to create your own world. And that's kind of the problem of coming up with unique ideas. You know, The Conjuring is more, you have to explain. A haunted house. Yeah. But when you're talking about like the fervor and what are the rules here and astral projection, you want to step away from just the typical haunted house, which is interesting, but you have to back it up a lot more, and they skimp. They definitely do. And I felt it when he was like, "Oh, you're alive, so you can push this guy away." It's like, okay. And things like that. It definitely also, it makes, to me, this, watching it this time around, it made the imagery inconsistent. Like there's no real theme, like, oh, there's a creepy person with a crazy smile, and then there's like an old-timey kid, and then there's this like Danzig motherfucker, and then there's like this Darth Maul demon, and in each area they really have like all different feels, because like when you're in the demon's lair, it's like very gothic and dark. It looks like some Bobo ass like fucking metal music video.
It's a Tool video. That's what it makes.
But then
it is
when
kind of
you're
the boiler room from Freddy.
But then when you're in like the house, it's got this like retro 50s, feel to it. And you're
just
like, what is the aesthetic supposed to be?
I think it's.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think it's supposed to be a form of purgatory where like all these bad spirits end up, and that happens over the course of however many decades, and they're all from different parts of the country, the world, whatever. I don't know. It's the further. It's where all the shitty
Sixth
souls
Sense
go.
rules, but also there's a demon, and that's that's Darth Maul. And demons like to live in Tool videos rather than in 50s houses. I mean, to me that makes sense. It's like you're going into these people's private like private houses, so to speak, or private domicile, or their environments, their native environments, and it's tailor made to that particular entity for whatever reason. That's what it looks like for him, for the demon. Whereas the other people, they're just, people that are, like Rob said, in purgatory. I don't have a problem with that so much. It's not really like the world building. It's the explanation. It's almost like they give, to me, I disagree. I think that they give too much. There's a lot of exposition from Lin Shaye in this movie, which is necessary to some degree because, like we said, I love that it's a unique idea or whatever, but she adds enough of it to hang themselves, I think, because they do things like, oh, you're alive, so you have the power to push this thing away, but the kid somehow doesn't have that power. He never uses that power. And then you've got shit like, oh, these things are just clamoring to get into your empty vessel. Your son is an empty vessel right now because he's wandered away from his body in the fervor. But then, like, a few scenes later, the demon is literally lifting him up and like puppeting him, his body. He could just jump into the body, couldn't he? Because we saw at the end of the movie that all you gotta do is run fast enough to the body.
Well, and also I want to bounce off that idea because part of the exposition is they want to get into the body, but it takes a lot of time and energy. And it's like, okay, that's fine. So I can understand that. But then
Patrick Wilson gets taken right away.
Yeah, legit. That motherfucker gets taken with like a snap of a finger. And it's like, okay, well, where does that fucking logic lay here?
Since you pointed that out, like as you were saying that, I came up with another reasoning that you could use, but if it is the case, is poorly defined. Let's give it that. You could say that, like, because he astral projected as a child and was straight up like stalked by this bride dead person that we learn more about in the sequels, like maybe her presence in his life has been constant and she's just been waiting to snatch him up the whole time. Yeah. I mean, it definitely implies that it was around when he was a child. But I mean, we got to think that he's had photos of himself taken since then and not had creepy proof.
We see one.
Proof of fucking ghosts. Do we?
Because the mom says, oh my God, I can't believe you were able to make him stand long enough to take a picture. And it was like a family photo. And that's where the idea first comes up that he doesn't like his photo taken. Then we find out because as a kid, you can see the fucking mother like ghost in it.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
The mom says in the very beginning of the movie when they first move into the house and she's like showing family photos to her kid. And she's like, oh, yeah, we don't have any pictures of your father as a child. I'm not really sure why. It's like one of the first scenes in the movie, and they kind of build upon that.
I remember them looking at the photo album, but that glossed right over my brain this time. It feels like maybe if this movie, it's like, I don't know if it had too much groundwork to lay, or if it, in order to make its plot make sense, or if it was... I can't decide if it was underbaked or overbaked. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at with it. But there's something lacking in this logic here. It's trying to be both like button up, like here's the facts logic in how this works. And then also trying to play the loosey goosey, fucking David Lynch, it is what you think it is sort of thing where you know what I mean? I don't think it's like, I don't think it's kind of hitting this midpoint where it's not fully explained and it's not, at the same time, it doesn't necessarily need to be for the action of the movie to still have impact.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just when the minute you start interrogating it, like on a more like you start taking those tidbits and trying to piece them together, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like there's also this scene that drives me nuts. And this is one I've noticed since I was a kid, or I'm sorry, since I first watched this movie, I guess I should say. It seems like I was a kid because it was fucking 12 years ago.
Since I was a kid.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Back when I wasn't allowed to hang out with you. Right.
Yeah.
But there's this scene, like they're in this house, right? They're in this house and they think they're haunted, so they move out of the house. And before that happens, Dalton, their son, goes into this coma or whatever, the fervor coma, and he's in there when they're in their new house. He's still there throughout the course of the movie. And somebody hung up all these creepy ass drawings that he drew that is very pertinent to him and his life. Like that are straight up just says, I'm in dreamland or some shit on it. Like somebody hung those on the wall and it wasn't him. And nobody noticed. The grandma didn't notice this. The 10 times she's been in there, she's clearly there a lot, like to help out. Like they made that point. So I don't know.
because it's after they start seeing ghosts, and one of them, actually several of them,
Looks
are the
like the
demon
ghosts,
motherfucker.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's drawing the demon that is, I don't know, man. It like that sort of shit like just sticks in my craw, It's like that. That seems
was
like
a
you were so
weird-
tied to the trope that you're willing to do like things that just like you're willing to break the logic of the movie, and that's when it becomes less earned and more forced. That's kind of the issue with it to me.
Also, I guess since I'm becoming more of an adult now, the idea that they just move houses immediately was like ridiculous to me. like I can't stay another night in this house. And the next scene, they're like, all right, well, we just bought a new house where they
they skipped
literally
a
just
lot of
moved
escrow.
yeah. And
Because he's a fucking school teacher and she is a musician who is not working.
And
so how the fuck are they affording this?
Exactly. That also bothered me too, that when they're coming back in the fervor land, the dad just abandons the kid. And also this kid is in a house that he's never actually been in before. And he's just supposed to know where his fucking
room is. And he gets lost on the way to his room. And that leads to another standoff between him and the demon.
And the dad just totally leaves his kid. There was a bit where
he's like, oh, I'm tired. Dude, you don't have a body. You are a specter right now. How are you tired?
Go on. I'll catch up with you. So it's like, there's a motherfucking demon chasing your ass.
You are being chased by leagues of dead people and a demon, and you don't have lungs right now to get
you're just
out of breath.
Chill in the fucking kitchen.
Yeah.
And also too, the logic of there's no point in this movie where she says like you need to face your fears or this is how you get the ghost to go away.
Right.
For him to stand in the kitchen and just yell, I'm not
out
of you anymore. Yeah. Get out of here. It's like,
that is literally a Home Alone
Are you
moment.
doing that? Why?
That is literally Kevin McAllister saying, I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah, there's like why are you doing that?
I agree with you, man. I thought the same thing. And Tim, like, if you're right, though, if Elise had at one point said like, you have more power when you have less fear or anything to that degree, then that maybe it would have made sense for him to stand off, or maybe if the thing was standing in the way and he's like, go around the other way or some shit like that. But instead he's just like, oh, I'm tired. I'll catch up with you, Dalton.
Or
I know that I came into an alternate dimension to save you.
Yeah.
But you go ahead and run away.
Or to sacrifice himself like for his son, like, oh, I'm going to take this on. But no, he just puts his son down and it's like,
he can't Kamehameha the bride for some reason. So he just ends up getting
I feel like that's him trying to, though. Like he realizes that he's stronger than these dead people and is
maybe
trying to banish her the same way, but it doesn't work for some reason. She's too strong.
But she uses dream logic against him that I guess like to get him to swap places with her and be outside of the house instead of inside.
Whoa.
Like that's a cool shot. I give him that. But again, it feels like, okay, so wait, where are the boundaries of this place? Like what is the logic here? This is just a thing they can do too. They can like straight up like pull fucking David Copperfield shit on your ass. What is this?
Hey, what happens in the fervor stays in the fervor, baby.
Apparently.
See, and this
I go to the fervor for stroking.
I like this movie a lot though, because it does shows like Wan's interest in creating these distinct kinds of ghosts. And we see that later on where it's exploited, with like the fucking nun and bullshit like that. But you get to see, I feel like this is a more unpolished, experimental, James Wan, where we see like in The Conjuring, like, okay, it doesn't have as many like unique, crazy ideas, but he hones his craft in more, like the story.
This is a nice midpoint for him.
It is. And like, and it's nice to see as like a benchmark too, because I think he improved on like a ton of things. Like another thing that bothered me about this movie, which I know exists in The Conjuring and I can see it in my mind, but I hated the color grading on this movie this time around. It's the only time that's really bothered me. But I know when I think about The Conjuring, I know it's just got this kind of general sickish greenish tone is like what I associate with this one, even when they're not in the fervor. So they like crank up the saturation when they're in the fervor. But when they're just even in their regular house, there's this like aqua like overtone that like bothers the shit out of me. And then when they're in the fervor, it's just like bright on like aqua. And I'm like, what the
There
fuck?
There was this shot of Renee. Like, this is actually the same scene with the kid where the Tiptoe and the Tulips starts playing. She happens to be taking the trash out or something outside, and we're looking at her from outside of an open window. And it's broad daylight. It's like mid-afternoon sunlight, but it looks washed out and blue because of the poor color grading. I think you're right about that. And like later on, I would say that the 50s house has its own color grading, and then you got the Demon's Lair, which is oversaturated or is crazy saturated. And I don't have a big problem with those as artistic decisions, but it's like an execution that doesn't work with the technology of the time or with the technology available to him. I would say something about it is not subtle enough. It is distracting.
I was like forgiving enough in the fervor when everything was super saturated, because I was like, you got to make it look distinct, and it actually kind of looks better because everything is dark. So when it's super saturated, like, it's okay. It makes like an interesting enough contrast. But you're right. Like when it's like normal life and they're in a house or they're walking around outside or even like in his classroom and everything is like aqua, you're like, what the fuck? Like, are they fucking swimming underwater? What the fuck are we doing here?
In fairness, this was 2010, 2011?
2009.
He's getting ready for Aquaman, you know? He's just prepping.
Yeah, that's what it was. Aquaman. Mm-hmm. No, it really seems like that, like around that time, that was just like the thing to do. It almost seems like,
yeah, I think
you know, not just with horror movies, but in general. I mean, fucking people read once Jurassic World hit and people read that the I riot act for doing that. It started like kind of tapering off in earnest, but for a long time, ever since Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out, that color grading was like the hot shit to put in your movie.
Yeah,
but not everybody wielded it well. Like
Underworld was blue as shit. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Even shows do that. I mean, like think about what is that fucking show? True Detective. Like any bright colors in that thing?
Yeah,
only
right.
like
just
only in select moments.
Yeah,
you know, but it's more subtle. And it works because of that.
Yeah, and see, The Conjuring was that way too. Like The Conjuring has a very distinct color grade that I can imagine in my mind, but it was done better. See, and that's what I was saying. Like, it was just this one is definitely just less polished, and it's just a weird color to choose in general. Like aqua, like what? I don't know. But yeah, that was something that
looking
bothered
back
me
on
this
that
time
as a trend. Even like, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. There's some weird shit in this movie. Again, going back to the story and some of the holes or whatever, some of the things that I got fixated on where I wasn't in the past. Elise and Josh's mom both have multiple very clear images of actual dead people. Mm-hmm. And they don't do anything with that. They just let the world continue thinking there might not be an afterlife and all this shit for decades. None of them get like, I would be so mad if somebody showed me pictures like, you've had fucking photographic evidence of life after fucking death and you've been keeping it to yourself. Fuck you.
Why didn't you start your own television show where you investigate paranormal bullshit, you know?
Dude,
Travel Channel
or at least show people like, okay, so this is proof that what I'm doing isn't bullshit. So you don't have that fake out scene where Josh is like, well, no, I've had enough, which is so clearly like a fake hurdle to cross over so that he can have that moment of seeing the kids' drawings that are meticulously art directed child's drawings. I mean, there's some like very like Justin said, there's like incredible amounts of love given to these tropes. Like these are classic tropes. They're being taken seriously, and on that level, I kind of respect and like them. And I think like with the effective jump scares, it works out pretty well. But on the other hand, they're also a lot of times really forced. A lot of these things, like I was saying earlier, it's like he really wants to get Tiptoe through the Tulips to work in the scene, so he's going to make sure Tiptoe in the Tulips works for this scene.
I think another sort of trope they play with in this movie, and they kind of add something original to it, is they visit like the seance trope where everybody sits down at a round table.
Dude.
They contact
let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's a strong scene in the movie, and Elise has all these like homemade gadgets that she uses, and in this scene she busts out this gas mask, which is really creepy. And it's got this like tube connected to some headphones, and Specs, who's Leigh Wannell, who wrote this movie, is wearing the headphones, and she whispers, to the demons or whatever, and she says what they say back, and he's just transcribing it basically. And shit gets out of hand in this sequence, and they all get blown away from the table. It's I don't know, builds tension really well. I found it to be pretty effective.
Dude. I actually had a different experience with that this time than ever before, which was in the past, I've watched that scene and been like, oh, this is pretty cool. And this time I watched it and I was like, this is fucking dumb. I don't like this. I don't like this.
Okay.
This dumbass, okay, so you need to whisper to the ghosts and you need the guy to hear you. So you rig up a fucking World War II era gas mask with a long fucking elephant trunk into his ears.
They could call that a rigatoonie, Randy.
Do they really?
Rigatoonie?
I think
actually,
it doesn't like it looks really dumb to me now, because it's really like we need an excuse for somebody to wear a creepy fucking gas mask. Like that is all it is. It's like, okay, I need this trope to be in this. I want this trope to be in this. How can I make this happen? I'll use this trope, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's kind of the problem with a lot of that shit to me.
I think they set that up well enough, and I think this is where this movie actually kind of shines. I get that sentiment. But even before, they were showing this guy walking around with his gadgets, and one of them is an old, like those old toys where like you can see little pictures or whatever. But he's
the viewfinder.
Yeah, the viewfinder. Yeah, and he's turned it into a way to like see ghosts, and they kind of explain it a little bit. So I like the homemade feel of a lot of these gadgets, and I feel it's where this aesthetic kind of shines, where like James Wan had these kind of cool ideas and where they came through. And I like the idea of the gas mask, because not only that, we have other gadgets in the background where the lights are flashing to pick up changes in like, I don't know, the atmosphere and
temperature
shit like that.
And light or electricity.
And so to me, it made the world stronger, because it made it seem like things that we don't typically see in exorcist movies or haunting movies or things like that. It made it feel more like homemade, like if this were in real life, this is how we would have to piece these things together. We'd have to be innovative.
I don't think you would have to. You ever hear of a tin can and a string? Like, I don't think you need that gas mask, man. I think that's all aesthetic.
But I
like that better than a Ouija board and some candles. You know, it's a little different.
No, I agree. And that's why I originally was drawn to it, is because this is not a normal seance in a seance movie. It's playing with the trope, and it's using other tropes, pulling tropes out of the toy chest to sort of like make sort of a new amalgam. And that I like and respect, but I just feel like looking at it now, it's like, yeah, but is it effective in its own right? To me, like it is to some extent, but it's not as much as I used to give it credit for, I would say. I think that it's like again, like it's that thing of it. If you interrogate it for more than a second, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, except for a person making a movie who wants it to look cool. Like, yeah. And that's, I mean, which is his job, to his credit. Like, again, like that's that thing. But like, if you're trying to build this as a realistic thing and then have fucking multiple sequels based around these concepts, I mean, it's not very sturdy ground, in my opinion.
Sturdy enough, apparently.
I mean, you can. There's 5 fucking Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, so yeah, there's you can build land on water if you have to.
Each one better than the last.
Oh yeah, that's the definitive line on those movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that like I know that might not be, it sounds like that's not what you guys think, and that's fine, because I certainly used to have a stronger opinion of that scene. It just sort of hit me weird this time. Like, okay, the light bulb's flashing. I think that's an interesting way of justifying that happening, even though it's like, again, it's like writing to the end point instead of writing to meet an end point that you want and a desired outcome, rather than writing organically what makes sense. It's writing it's writing the ending first, which in some cases works fine, but for when you can actually see that that's the case, or it feels like that's the case, it kind of bums me out. It doesn't really, because it kind of like, I don't know, it makes things more difficult to rationalize to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
There's another sequence sort of towards the beginning of this movie that I think is pretty effective, and I wonder if it holds up for you guys after having seen this movie, I'm sure a handful of times. It's sort of the sequence that makes them leave their first house, where they're going to bed. It's like late at night, and there's a random knock at the door, and Owen Wilson goes to check it out, and there's nobody there.
Wow.
And he locks the door, sets the alarm, goes back upstairs, and then the alarm goes off, and then his wife sees like a ghostly figure standing behind the baby's crib, and it's like sort of out of focus and difficult.
Catch you fuckers at a bad time.
And
That's what he says.
we go around the house with Patrick Wilson. He's like investigating every room and doesn't find anything and locks the door back again. And it's like the way it builds tension, I think, is still pretty effective to me. And seeing like the ghost, which is so obviously just a person with like face paint on, but it's still jarring and like it's not right up in your face. You kind of have to be looking for it a little bit. I think the way all these pieces are stacked are so simple, but I think it's done smartly. I don't know. What do you get?
I thought that was still pretty effective because it's like it's pulling in elements of home invader tropes to in a haunted house scene, and to me that's effective because that is a primal fear that we have for the most part, like that some unwanted presence will arrive in our place. But not only that, and like that's what the whole thing about haunted houses are in general. So he's just sort of like distilling that down and correlating it with like the real life version of that, I think. And to that extent, I think it works really well. It's a little bit, I would say that in terms of like beat for beat, there's a couple times where I'm a little disoriented about where I am in the house in that scene, just because they're cutting back and forth between Renee and Patrick Wilson. A couple, like maybe a little bit more often than is necessary, or maybe it just kind of disoriented me personally. But it was a little bit disoriented, and not to the extent where I would ding that scene for that, but it is worth noting, I would say.
Yeah, it was weird because this is one of the times I watched this movie where I was like, oh shit. Some scenes that I thought were coming actually exist in Insidious 2.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
or 3 or 4.
Yeah. So it was weird too. That was another element in this. Is like, oh, I'm so familiar with this, not only just this movie, but this franchise, that I think certain beats are coming, or I think certain things are coming that actually aren't. And so I had to keep reminding myself, like, no, like stay in this movie. How is this movie crafted? Because I do know so much more about this world and where things are headed and stuff like that. So for that scene in particular, I think it was effective because you have the extra sound of the alarm going off.
Yeah.
And that adds a lot of agitation to you just naturally, like, fuck, turn that loud sound off and stuff like that. And then it like kind of changes the way the jump scares are done too, because usually jump scares is very, very quiet, and then you hit with a loud noise. So building tension through a scene where there's already a very loud noise, where you can't rely on that silence, where you're listening for something, you hear a creak in the floor or like in the door and you think something's coming. That's pretty interesting. That's an interesting idea. And so I still like this scene. Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
There's one part of it that I thought was like, weirdly, I just recently watched like the last season of Breaking Bad over again for like the 12th time or some shit. And there is a scene that is very, very similar. I don't want to spoil anything about that, but there is a scene that is pretty similar to, in blocking and the way it's set up, to Renee opening the door to her infant child's bedroom, and there being a person standing there kind of like on the other side of the crib.
It's Danzig.
So
Screaming Mother.
It's Glenn Danzig. Yes, it is. Yeah. So, I mean, I had that flash in thinking about that, they're not related, but they're using the same sort of tension, the same blocking, the same sort of like style to describe the tension of a mother walking in on somebody, looking over their child that they don't want to be there and don't know is there. It's pretty effective. Like, that shit still works. That's like a classic thing to do. And with those sort of like out and out classic moments, I think that James Wan is as good as anybody you'll find at this time. It's when he starts sort of like mix and matching a little bit that things sort of start getting a little wonky.
A little wanny. You guys, were you familiar with like astral projection the first time you watched this movie, or did you learn about it through this movie? Do you remember?
I knew about it before.
Yeah. I
knew nothing about the fervor.
Fervor was definitely new. I thought that was something cool to see injected into this movie. Like, your kid's not in a coma. He's just like projected his soul out of his body and he's hanging out in some weird ghost town. Don't know how to get back into his body, which is something I can't think. I'm sure it's in other movies, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that like cites astral projection specifically as like being a part of the movie, like a plot point.
I thought that was a fresh idea. Even now, I was like you. I was like, where is this used, or where could it be used? Yeah. And it's not often, not anything that just immediately comes to my mind. So I did like that it set this movie up as a haunted house film, but it became something else. And I do think this movie is more about ideas and like, what kind of tools would you need for a haunted house? What kind of like why would ghosts be attracted to this body? Oh, like because it's empty or whatever. Like those are pretty smart ideas.
Yeah, I mean, this is using things that like for example, the idea that the sun is haunted and not the house, and they move houses and it follows them. We've seen that in Poltergeist before, at least, but the way that they rationalize it is, again, it's like this mix and match of tropes, and they're very lovingly handled, but they don't fit together seamlessly is kind of the issue. So like, all that said though, like I really respect that he's pushing the boundaries of what these things are, because at this time I think the only haunted house movie that's sort of like hot shit is Paranormal Activity. And that's an entirely different approach that's using extremely, at that time, not cutting edge, but very modern sort of sensibility of this found footage thing, which, is very limited for a reason. But this is not limited. This is using old tropes, using old camera work tricks and all these things, but he's making an amalgam. He's making a fucking super beast out of these things. He's Frankensteining them together a little bit. And I admire like what he's trying to do. And I think that from a tone standpoint, I'm in. Like, I like the tone of things, but it's, again, like the more you think about it, the more that falls apart. So you really just kind of got to go for the ride in order to get the most out of this movie.
Yeah. He takes old tropes, things that we've seen a million times before, and sort of puts a fresh shine, new coat of paint on it, and we get Insidious.
And nobody was doing that. You couldn't pay somebody to touch some of these tropes at the time he was doing this.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, he's almost rescuing them from the recycling bin of the movie industry, which, every trope, every idea, every theme, all these things, they go in cycles. So it's been however many years at that point since, Poltergeist. He's playing with these things, and it's tough not to like that. Like as a horror fan, it's tough not to like the guy who's remixing horror tropes. Yeah, he's trying to Quentin Tarantino his own fucking horror movie. It's tough not to love that.
Yeah,
but as a net effect, I think that there's some slip ups. Is kind of the thing I keep coming back to.
Couple slips there.
I think he's gonna try and do the same thing again with Malignant, which is hopefully coming out this year. It's supposed to come out last year.
Man, does he just have a thesaurus with one page?
I just saw that was confirmed rated R. I think.
Nice, and I think that's one of the many that's going straight to HBO Max instead of getting a theatrical release now, but it doesn't have a confirmed release date yet. But he's I assume going to be like remixing the Giallo tropes.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Giallo.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Giallo.
I forgot he was doing Giallo style. See, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I want these things to be like, it takes somebody who like loves the genre to make this movie. And I'm sure it'll be the same thing with that, I hope. So, I mean, and even things as simple as like the smash cut of somebody going from like staring at you angrily to staring at you with a manic smile, like those things are really effective. And they're things that, like I said, wouldn't be touched past the 80s for a while. Like you couldn't really get those kind of scares until he started making like Dead Silence, and then he kind of like extrapolated that into this movie. So I don't know, man. I'm a little conflicted about this movie this time around, more so than I expected to be.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
What do you guys think about the acting? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was just gonna say it does feel like maybe it didn't age quite as well as I anticipated it would, but it's still solid, and I respect what it did. The acting is fine.
Yeah, I think the acting is fine or solid. I was gonna say toward the aging, I did this time around. I felt like this is not aging like a fine wine.
Yeah.
Now like soda pop.
Like
the thing is, I don't think it's like making it worse, but it's not necessarily like standing the test of time. It exists well from when it's from. Like,
right.
To me, it's like a movie that really represents its era really well. But it's not like standing just the overall test of time. Like, this is just a timeless classic, because it's not. It's definitely not.
It definitely feels of its time, and the color grading has a lot to do with that, to your credit.
Yeah. And so the further we get removed from it, it's easier, I think, to see some of these problems that maybe didn't exist for us before because it was in the time. But in the same, like, it's like two sides of a coin. Because I've spent so much time with it, because I'm so familiar, I still, even with these new kind of problems that I'm seeing, I still hold it to that regard of when I kind of first saw it, like you were saying, Randy, like where it holds a higher place kind of in my mind and in my heart a little bit, because I feel like I know how significant it was for the time, as opposed to if I just saw this for the first time, like today, like, okay, I've never seen Insidious, I'm going to watch it today. Then I might be like, oh shit, yeah, this color grading's rough and these things are rough. And so it might drop it significantly. So it really is kind of like a double-edged sword a little bit for me.
I 100% agree with that. Like the timelessness of this is definitely in question. I would say that it's definitively not timeless to me, because it feels very much of its time. And, there's still a quality to that. There's still something, like existing within its moment is not a bad thing. Like plenty of movies that are like fucking necessary. Like, think about like Caligari. We loved that movie, but a lot of people would watch that movie and just say like, this is dull and stupid or whatever. Like, they would not get a lot out of it because they don't know because they've seen fucking Avatar and shit.
Because they're simpletons,
because
they're beneath us.
That is so far from what I'm saying. But no, like
fart sniffs.
Are you sure, Randy?
Oh, are you sure? Are you sure that's the sword you want to draw? Okay. Anyway, but like,
don't get it, man.
The idea that there's like that this movie was going to be like a classic forever and ever and ever. I mean, I think that still could be true, but it's not going to be a classic that I think that people that are just watching it for the first time now are going to get the same thing out of. Because like Justin said, like if I pick this movie up for the first time today, I would probably hold it in a similar regard to maybe like it would still be better than anything for Jackson, but that's the immediate thing that comes up to my mind. Like, it's a low budget horror. It's really trying. It's got some good elements. It's got some quality moments, but it suffers in a few spots. Like, it would be not mediocre. I would say better than that, but it would be a extra medium and not a hot,
Yeah.
So
I feel you. Do you guys want to touch on anything else before we rate this thing? Nah. Sounds like a nah.
Proof of the afterlife. Come on.
Yeah.
Cash in.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to touch on that because I had to go get some more stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because that's funny that you bring that up, because even later on in the film, once they've kind of wrapped it all up, the dude's talking about like, oh, I'm going to sell all these pictures to make my book and shit like that. And it's like, what? Like, they've had these pictures and testimony for like years. And I don't know. I kind of agree with you on that. Like, yeah, you had not just the idea of you have proof of the afterlife, but you even like when she went in and he was like, you guys are all just a bunch of frauds. It's like, motherfucker, look at this picture of you with a fucking ghost behind you. Like, we're not in the fucking mood. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Soju. Yeah, so I agree with you. It's kind of
I was going to go back to the acting because I was leading that because I had much more of a problem with the acting this time than I did the first time around. I feel like I don't know if I was just that immersed in it, that like taken aback by, the uniqueness of the concepts or whatever, but the acting is pretty mediocre, I gotta say. Like, and I don't get a lot out of it. Even Lin Shaye, who is definitely the most charismatic piece of the acting, I would say that it's a little bit expository-y. It's a little too,
it is.
As expository dialogue. It's a little too like, it feels like everything she says is pretty prepared, because we know that it is, but within the world, it feels like it's prepared. You know what I mean? Like she said a place I like to call the further so many times, and we know that now because we've seen the sequels where she always fucking says it. So, I mean, I don't know. I felt like it was at best okay.
Yeah.
I feel like if I watch this today for the first time, I don't think that I would be as nice to this acting.
I agree. Yeah. It feels decent. Not bad, but definitely not outstanding. It's fine.
I thought the relationship between the husband and the wife felt the most like kind of relatable, I guess, but there's not much. Like, you got some kids and they like, that even that extra kid who's not like the main one, he does
in
like
one
solid. Yeah. And then Lin Shaye does good.
Disappears.
And actually the two techs, like they have a pretty good, like solid little banter between them. I don't know.
No, I've always kind of found that a little forced. Like, it's very much trying to be a.
I kind of like
the guy's name's Specs. I mean, I like that they're trying to do that, but it feels like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, where it's just like, okay, we need two bickering, lowly characters. It's like R2D2 and C3PO shit. Like, we need low-ranking, which is fine, but like, I don't know. Again, it's an idea of like, is this trope really working in this setting the way that they wanted it to, or is it more of a distraction? And to me, this time around, it felt like more of a distraction than it ever has.
I enjoy their comedic back and forth, and I also appreciate that Tucker's just slamming a hot pocket. I mean, respect,
dude. That guy is eating that's like a 5-bite hot pocket situation. It's a 5-alarm 5-bite hot pocket.
Dancing with the devil right there. Ooh.
Yeah, you are, buddy.
The butthole
must be stopped at every opportunity.
The butthole devil.
It's gonna explode that shit.
Says
devil of buttholes. Is there like specific demons? Pizza? The way that like in Catholicism you have specific saints for everything. You have specific demons for everything. Like, this is the patron demon of buttholes. His name is Hot Pocketus.
It's gonna explode that shit. I will say, for our very our back to behind the scenes, this also just became a little bit of a mukbang video where I just pounding
that sounds hot.
The whole time.
Pounding what?
Around here, that means big money.
What are you pounding the whole time?
Pounding za.
Wow.
Also, since I'm back in the States, I actually get to have adult beverages for our cast now, which it's nice.
Oh, Bob.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Still learning the new placement of the bumps here.
It's our first show, everybody. Be kind. Let's rate this thing out of 5. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How you feel about Insidious yet again?
So it's crazy to think that like 6 years ago or 6.5 years ago now, we reviewed this. And at the time I rated it a 4. It was split. A 4 for me, a 4 for Bob, and then the twins both rated it 5s. And I can't, this movie does hold a special place in my heart, and I feel like even in the realm of horror, it's a staple in certain ways. I appreciate the ideas it's bringing. I appreciate the different outlook it's trying to have on a haunted house kind of type of movie. Like Randy was pointing out, like just kind of knocking those tropes on their head, or not even that, but kind of like mixing and matching them a little bit. And I don't know. I really do appreciate that. I still feel like this had a strong influence on horror moving forward. And a lot of the horror that I love, like I said, like this decade was, my favorite of horror. I think we had a lot of great new ideas and stuff. And I feel like this was, an influence on that. And I really do appreciate that and respect it. There were some new problems that I saw for the first time this watch around that I never noticed before. But at the same time, it almost just kind of made me appreciate it more in some ways because the ideas seemed fresher too. As we're starting to get into some more like kind of treaded ground, like you start to see how these trends evolve and you start to get tired of like certain flavors of the time. Like this really was trying to do fresh things. And then in a couple of years that weren't like so great necessarily for horror or even just for film in general, I think Insidious still holds up well for me. So I'm still like I'm not gonna take it to a 5 because it does have problems, but I'm not gonna take it any lower either. It still holds up for me on the whole. So I'm gonna keep it at a 4. I'm keeping it at a 4-star.
All right, 4 stars from the Juice. I didn't know what I rated it last time. I didn't look it up, but
did I spoil it?
I know now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, some like quick tidbits about this. This is only your second time on the cast. Was the original Insidious?
Yeah.
Damn.
And it was only my first episode. It was my first episode ever that I couldn't be there.
Yeah, it was like on the spreadsheet it shows as episode 9, and the pick before that was for some reason it was like pick 8, and it was my first pick, which I knew I missed like the first few episodes, but I was like thrown right into the rotation, and I picked the old Canal. I thought that shit was hilarious.
There was also some early mismanagement of files, I think, where some of those may not be in their proper place in the early 60s.
That's what I was thinking, because
it's very possible that they're not
correct
in
to
order.
me, because I like it's funny to think like I picked the Canal first, but I don't think I did.
We didn't start keeping track of the shit until like episode 200.
Yeah. Okay. So,
well, no, I mean, I didn't start a spreadsheet until like episode 200. And I think those first 60 we just had after we did a hiatus. And during that hiatus, the order of it just got
that makes more sense. Okay.
I feel like we had the spreadsheet before that.
I don't know. I may be off on that too, but it was like early in our new run.
Yeah.
Early after the hiatus that we implemented that.
We've had that since like 2015. For sure. I remember like going back and collecting data for it when I had a desk job.
I made that for you for part of your Christmas gift.
I remember that. Thank you.
I do remember that too.
Yeah, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. This movie is super influential. It's super enjoyable. It's got some really solid scares. I appreciate that it takes shit that we're all familiar with and sort of breathes some new life into it. Even if some of it falls a little bit flat, I think it's got some serious like ingenuity going on here. And James Wan is just super creative. He really earns the scares in a way that a lot of filmmakers just cannot do. They don't have it down. He understands the art of the jump scare, and he does it better than almost anybody else, I think. Him and Flanagan nails it too.
I agree with that. Yep.
But I like a lot of the stuff that's going on here. The acting is a little bit flat. When they do start dropping in some of the CGI work towards the end, it doesn't land because I just don't think they had the budget for it, which, it is what it is. And when you get the big flood of like ghosts and demons coming into the house at the very end where like the further's just blown the fuck open, I don't really like that either. The movie's like sort of subtle, and it kind of like creeps along, and I think that's kind of where its strength lies. And then when it sort of blows the lid off at the end, where you get the CGI like demon crawling on the wall and like the house just becomes totally overwhelmed with ghosts, that's where it comes off the rails a little bit. It bites off a little bit more than it can chew, which I get wanting to do that. It's the finale. You want to make it, big and flashy. But I just don't think they totally have the means to pull it off. And I think that's more visible now than it was, when this movie came out 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Because of that, and definitely because of the acting, I think it doesn't age quite as well as I anticipated it. This time around, I was like, yeah, Insidious. Okay. it's going to be great. And it was a little bit less than great, I think, but it still managed to scare me, which is hard to do. And I've seen this movie, I don't know, 4 or 5 times probably, and it still like actually kind of scared me. So my hat's off to that. I am going to dock it a little bit. I didn't know this, but I know
I like
it now.
your hat.
I'm going to dock it a half point and give it a 3.5 out of 5. So, Randy.
Wow.
What you think?
Yeah. So I don't know that I disagree with any of your individual points on this. I was coming into this fully prepared to give a 4 or a 4.5. That's kind of how I felt like that's what I felt that I would give this movie based on my previous experiences with it. But I sat down and I watched it as, probably more critically than I have in the past. The first time, even if I had done this in the original run of the show, we were less engaged with the content because we were watching together and fucking around a lot more.
Yeah.
So now I was watching on my own, just, doing this, some of those flaws, they got to me a little bit more. And seeing this movie removed from the context of its release date or its release era, it added a lot of doubt into what I was originally thinking about this movie. And for all the reasons you guys already brought up, the acting was, to me, on the better side of lousy. It was a reasonable performance by everybody. Lin Shaye kind of outshines everybody, and even she has got a little bit of unbelievability, in my opinion. I think that's the Specs and Tucker are a little bit annoying. I think that, like Rob said, that things kind of fly off the rails at the end when they, like you said, exactly, bit off a little bit more than they could chew, which I respect that. Like, biting off a little bit more than you can chew is the best way to learn how to do shit. So I fully appreciate that. But at the same time, this is not James Wan's first rodeo. He at this point, he had already made one of the biggest fucking horror movies of that era with Saw. So, I mean, I don't know that gets a free pass from me, but I respect what I think he's doing here, which is, what you guys said. He's playing with the genres, the tropes. He's taking the haunted house, the monolith that is the haunted house, and then pulling out cubes and ideas and putting in new ones and trying to make it function. He's making a fucking, Rube Goldberg device out of these tropes. And I appreciate that. And also I appreciate that he doesn't go like full blast, like throwbacky the way that like actual Quentin Tarantino does. That's it. That has its place. Don't get me wrong. But I appreciate that somebody is just taking these things very seriously and at face value. Like that, they're good tropes on their own. They don't necessarily have to be like accompanied with a wink and a nod. You know what I mean? So on that level, I really like this movie. Like Rob said, the jump scares in this I can't think of one that doesn't work at all, and they're all respectable. None of them are like, the cat being thrown across the screen or any of that shit. Like, they do good work with that stuff. They earn the jump scares. And as flawed as this movie is, I still really like it. And I have a personal conviction about it because it was so heavily involved in me coming back into the flock when it comes to horror. So all that said, far from my 4.5 guess of what I was going to give today, I'm going to actually put it at a 3.25.
3.25 from Randy. Wow. That's going to put our aggregate at a 3.6.
Oh my God, that's lower than before.
That is lower. Well, yeah, because the twins weren't here to give 5s, or even an adapted, more updated version of that. Which also, one thing that's missing from this episode that I vividly remember is Ross and Jack doing pitch perfect Tiny Tim impersonations all throughout the episode.
Oh shit!
Please go back and listen to that shit,
Lord.
Or don't. You really don't have to, but it is hilarious.
Yeah, if you do want to, that's only available on our website
True.
In the archived episodes. That's the only
I've never been able to find that.
There's a tab that says archives. I think you need.
Yeah, it just says archives.
Click on
it's in the main navigation of our website.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Never been able to find it.
Yeah, it's super hidden.
Well, fuck me and my design.
Yeah. Fuck Randy.
I'm looking it up right now.
You're a monster.
It sounds like we failed our redemption here because we rated it lower than we did before. Oh well.
Well,
At least
redemption
there it
for
is.
us, not for the movie necessarily.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We are redeemed. We redeemed ourselves.
Randy got to review it, and that was his pick, and he
True.
picked it specifically because he didn't get a chance. Yeah.
All right, Randy.
That's probably going to be my
redeemed.
method going forward.
Method Man Randy.
Testify.
Let's go ahead and jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment.
Certified fresh to death.
Welcome to the Rotten Tomatoes segment. This segment is, for those who are new, is where I ask these two gentlemen to guess within the best of their abilities what both the critics and users score where it lays on a scale of 0 to 100% on RottenTomatoes.com. Now, this movie, I'm going to start with the critic score here. There are 177 critic scores counted for this, so a good hunk. Not a tiny amount, I wouldn't say. So between 0 and 100%, let's start with Bob. Bob, what do you think? What percentage of these critics gave this a positive review?
That's a great question. Probably a decent chunk. I don't think it's going to be super high, though. I don't see this being a critical darling. Give me a 60%, please. 60%. Juice, what about you? What do you think the critics thought of this movie?
I think it's going to be slightly higher, so I will take the straight chillin' special with the 69, please.
69 dudes.
69 dudes for Juice. All right. Let's see. Quick tabulation. Yes. Juice is going to take this one. He's going to ask for a hell yeet. Do not give him. Do not enable. This is a 66%. So you guys are both hovering in the area. 66%, not quite certified. The critics' consensus is as follows. Aside from a shaky final act, Insidious is a very scary and very fun haunted house thrill ride, which seems about on the money to me.
True.
Hey, Soju.
Nope.
Hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Soju? Did you just ask yourself for a hell yeet?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Finding ways to foil you boys. And Bob.
Foil.
Bob just can't handle losing.
You
That's the problem. Just
you really got a
totally
Superman
broken.
complex. I've foiled you again. All right, let's go to the user score here. There are 130,846 audience scores for this movie. This is clearly in the all comers days of this fucking movie, or of this website, Rotten Tomatoes, before they started limiting who could review.
Yeah.
Let's start with Juice this time. Juice, what do you think the audience gave this film?
I think it's going to be lower because I've heard a lot of critiques of this film. It's more polarizing than I initially knew. So I am going to drop it a scotch, and I will pick this one for our 60 for this one.
60%. All right, Bob, he stole your number. What are you going to do about it?
I'm going to steal his. I want the 69 dudes, please.
Oh, shit.
69 dudes.
Role reversal. All right. Well, I'm sorry, Bob. You fucked up. This is 62% from the audience.
Whoa.
You guys,
That's a hell ye sweet, Bob.
you guys are we're circling this pretty closely, but yeah. By a factor of like 3 points, you fucked up.
If you don't want to hear the hell yeets, Bob, you need to stop losing so
I gotta
much.
take this segment more seriously, I guess.
No, we really don't. In fact, I'm gonna ensure that by now reading some negative reviews. One says a cinematic version of one of those corny Halloween houses. Another person said, if the film is attempting to be more than just a horror movie, it doesn't work on that level either. I don't know what either is in reference to, but
meaning it doesn't.
Yeah,
work as
I
a
think
horror
it's
movie
trying
or anything else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's trying to be a horror movie too. I don't know.
Brutal.
Yeah. The people who were not kind to this movie were certainly not kind.
Well,
So yeah,
James
there you
Wan
go.
is swimming through his pile of cash. He's fine. He made it.
yeah. He's gonna make it.
Looks like one made it. Is Juice
Around here, that means big money.
I know you got some trivia. Let's talk about Yeet.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, boys. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to try to turn some of these into a game.
Ooh.
Yes. Thank you. There's some trivia here that says how long it took to film this movie, and it is measured in weeks. So, Bob, how many weeks do you think it took to film this movie?
2 weeks.
Randy, how many weeks?
I'm going to say 10 weeks.
Rob's going to get not a ding-a-ling, but he is the closest. The film was shot in just 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, seems really short.
It's quick. Yeah.
I was aiming for what I considered probably the median for a low budget like this, but the fact that you're asking that is probably a good sign that it's either much lower or much higher.
The film was originally going to be named The Fervor. So that's interesting.
Oh,
Glad it wasn't.
And by fervor, I mean the further.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
If you haven't caught that by now, then I don't know if there's hope for you.
Just to be clear. All right, we're going to get another number guess. A certain number of violins were used for the theme music of this, which is very shrill. Can you guess how many violins did it take to film this theme music? Randy, what is your guess?
Shouts outs to our benefactors in hell. I'm going to go with 6.
6. Okay. Robert, how many violins did it take to film this theme music?
I'm going to go with the lucky number 13, please.
13. Ooh. Rob is going to take it again. Neither of you were close. 33 violins were used, to record this theme music. That's nuts.
Well, la-dee-da.
This is something we know a little bit about. There was an
the next thing. Okay,
yeah, the next
I know nothing about violence. I fiddle every day.
There was an Insidious themed maze at Universal Studios Orlando for their annual event of Halloween Horror Nights. The maze was based on the 3 Insidious films released at the time. Can you guys guess what year was that maze released at Halloween Horror Nights? Who went first last time? I think Bob, it's your turn to go first.
Oh, that's such a good question. When did we go?
When?
Did you guys go to this one? Because
I think
I only went to like one.
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe 2.
It might have just. I think it was the twins, Juice, and myself. I think
there was one time where I went for like one house and then I had to go because I had to.
We also rode Transformers.
Yeah,
that was the year with American Werewolf in London.
Oh yeah,
because I missed that and I was upset.
That might have been the same year. That was the year that Jack got the shit scared out of him.
Oh yeah, I heard that story.
He was talking shit to a zombie and then the zombie fucked him up real good. It was so funny, so funny. I don't know, man. Like 2013.
Okay, 2013. Randy?
I'm going to say 2015.
That's going to be a ding-a-ling, Randy. 2015 was the year. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Very good. Ding-a-ling.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
At around the 30-minute mark, when Josh is in the classroom, on the chalkboard behind him, the name James Wan can clearly be seen, as well as a drawing of Billy the puppet from James Wan's Saw from 2004. Yeah. Also with the number 8 written under it. The rest of the names are the actual names of people that worked on the film. I guess all that's written on the board. What's up with the number 8? Do you guys know?
I don't know. I feel like there was some significance to it, but I can't think of it. There were only 7 Saw films up until they extended it past 3D, right? 3D was supposed to be the end point, right? And that was 7?
Yeah, and Jigsaw was 8, was part 8.
Jigsaw was like they forced an 8, right?
Yeah, it's like a weird...
Because I was going to say, maybe it was like, we're going to make 8 Saw movies, but I mean, that doesn't...
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. Number 9 this year, probably.
Whoa, anyways. Hopefully Spiral.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke turned down the role of Josh Lambert. Which ultimately went to Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson.
Right, Bob?
Owen Wilson. Correct.
Wow.
Actually, Patrick Wilson. Okay. Let's do one more game style trivia.
I'd like to play
Lin
the game.
Shaye. Lin Shaye has appeared in another film about okay. So this is not, I don't like how this is phrased, but I want to complete the game. So the second time Lin Shaye appeared in a movie about the afterlife, or this is the second time Lin Shaye appeared in a movie about the afterlife. Can you guys guess the other horror movie film that she appeared in where she plays a high school teacher? It's very similar to this.
For sure.
Who gets to go for you guys both are gonna guess it.
Rob, you take it. And maybe in case I'm wrong, I'm gonna let you take it.
It's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Is that what you were gonna say, Randy?
It's not actually.
Oh, Randy.
I was thinking of Child's Play 2.
Child's Play 2. Okay.
That might have been another lady though.
So Rob is going to get the dingling this time.
Okay.
Lin Shaye appeared in a movie about. See, I didn't like how they said about the afterlife because that's not really about the afterlife.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And neither, yeah.
The reason you said that though is the reason I would have gone with Child's Play.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work either.
But yeah, and we just covered A Nightmare on Elm Street, and we were all like, "Oh, there's Lin Shaye." She was talking when Nancy does her freak out or whatever when she passes out. And
Lin Shaye is in so many fucking horror movies, but she this is the only one I can think of. The first one I can think of where she played such a prominent role.
Yeah. Because she was in only just like one little scene in Nightmare on Elm Street. But all right, good boys. That was a good, fun little trivia.
Nightmare on Elm Yeet.
Wow. Got a couple ding-a-lings.
Couple of dinglings.
We do.
What else do we do on this show? It's time to go hunting. Let's talk Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
All right.
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that.
I think hell yeet maybe.
Probably. I think that's appropriate.
I think in this case, hell did provide. So
Hell gave us some yeets, I guess. I don't know what that means.
that was the yeet that we've been promised from hell for so long.
Juice, what's a Cooter? What are we doing?
Well, Bob, let me tell you. Cooter, it's a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter has to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter, and we are looking for the Cooter who has the most points to be considered Cooter of the Week. So, the 5 points of Cooterdom are smug arrogance, sexual deviance, manipulation, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness to form the pentagram of Cooterdom. Boys, who are we taking to Cooter Court this week?
I feel like there's not an immediate answer that jumps out in this one. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, like maybe the demon. I don't know.
I don't really want to go there though, because there's so little information about that thing's even. The only thing we know is its motivation to cause pain. That's it.
Go there. I don't know. I think we could pull a little bit more because we know where he lives.
Yeah, he's manipulating like everybody, the whole family, whatever.
Sure.
Well, he is we could say he is physically, if we want to go into manipulation, we could say he is physically manipulating the boy in that one scene because we see him literally holding him like a puppet or whatever. So
that's true.
We could say manipulation. So let's see.
Arrogance, maybe.
Well, he does speak. He does. Yeah, when they're doing the seance and he is speaking through Lin Shaye, he's like, I'm going to rip out your innards and I'm going to fuck your butt and all kinds of crazy
He says that. He does.
I'm going to not call you later.
PG-13. That's what he says.
I'm going to ghost your ass.
I'm going to unfriend you.
I'm going to ghost your ass.
That's the dialogue.
So, what does that fall into then?
What? We were saying arrogance. Yeah.
Oh, to me, that's I guess you could. To me, it's like, it's arrogant for anybody to try and impose their will on somebody in this way. I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that qualifies. Although it's not like a rock solid standing.
What is rock solid is his fucking attire, man. He's like got those crazy
Yeah.
fingernails he's sharpening up, and he's got that tongue. What's he doing with that tongue? I don't want to know.
What is he doing?
What's he not doing with that tongue?
Also, I guess too, I don't know, like attire, the way he decorates his house. He's got like little puppets.
He's got a style, man.
He's
you know?
definitely got a style.
He's got a Hot Topic Elite
Looks
card.
like a Tool video. So.
Elite. Do they have elite status at Hot Topic
Sure.
stores?
Yeah. The VIP.
The VIP topic.
The VIP topic.
You get the limited Funko Pop mailed straight to you. You don't have to go in there.
Oh,
and buy
yeah.
It. You gotta.
Is that that's another? Of course it is. Another.
No, that Hot
distributor.
Topic smell is part of the experience.
Yeah, they pack
want it
in
mailed straight
an
to
air
you.
freshener with that scent in it in your box.
It smells like leather belts with little metal
Two-
studs. That's what it smells.
Smells
2-day
like leather
shipping
daddies.
on all Willy Wonka themed Marilyn Manson t-shirts.
Smells like leather teens is what it smells like.
I hope you like Dragon Ball Z, bitch, because you're about to get a t-shirt in the mail every week.
Leather team.
Elite. Anyway, so moving forward,
We're hunting.
we're hunting. I wanted to bring up Patrick Wilson, Owen Wilson.
Wow.
I think there's something to be said about Patrick Wilson. For
Yeah.
one, he definitely lies to his wife in this one. I think there's a manipulator going on here. He skips out on helping out with the kids to stay at work and nap on his desk. I mean, that alone is just kind of shitty. I do give him credit for, like, his wife's telling him, I'm terrified to live in this house. And despite that, he's like in most horror movies, they would have been like, just give it another night, honey. It'll be fine. And in his case, he's like, you know what? All right. If it's going to help you, then I'm going to do that. And I respect
I'm gonna
that.
sell this house that we literally just
Dude,
moved into, and we take
know.
a
And
huge
later
loss. Apparently,
And later on, she's like, you never believed me. You just don't believe me. And he's like, I moved houses for you.
I love that was his defense.
Dude, it's
That's
like,
a decent point. you
I
know?
think so.
No,
And
it
look,
is.
It's
Yeah.
It is now, but when I was watching it the first time, I was like, yeah, I mean, you gotta listen to your wife. Yeah, but that's, I fucked up my credit score for you.
I'm an adult.
I burned a
Yeah,
whole year's salary.
I'm a high school teacher and I bought 2 houses this year.
I love how he's just grading tests every night of the week.
Grading tests. See, that's the thing is that's not true.
I'm
Yeah.
just grading
It's like you never had to
tests.
grade
Yeah.
tests before. And he's like, well, I just had to grade the tests. I don't know. So I don't know. There's some shitty going on there.
Not gonna grade themselves.
Sexual
bitch.
deviance, smug arrogance. I would say no. He defers to his wife more often than not.
Yeah.
He only fights back with Elise once, which I think is perfectly justified considering everything they do could 100% be staged up until that point. And then looking at attire, he's just got standard white man wear. I don't know.
WMW, white man wear.
Pathetic. I guess you could make an argument if you, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see
No,
pathetic. in
you're
this.
the one who brought him up. Hello, you're just fighting yourself over there, right?
No, I mean, it was really the lies to his wife. I was like, well, that's a starting point, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
But
That's kind of pathetic, though, to like bail on your family. That's pretty
It is.
pathetic.
but I don't want to like tie one piece of evidence to all of his points. You know what I mean?
It
What
is
about-
what it is, Randy, you know?
What about
Okay,
Danzig?
well, if you want to book him, Rob, you just say so. You say so. You want to convict an innocent man?
I don't feel compelled to book him, but I do think he's a little pathetic. That's all I'm saying.
How about Danzig?
He's really into that baby.
He's
That's sexual
screaming at
deviance
that
to me.
baby and at the mom.
He's screaming at the
He does say like, "What is it?" He's like, "I want it. I'm gonna get it or something."
Give it
Give
to
it
me.
to me.
Where's your mother? I'm putting, somebody do that. Put that like
Somebody
mother bump
do that.
onto the fucking clip of the creepy dude standing by the baby, please. I
Man.
appreciate it.
Sure. Okay.
Rob's
I'm sure
really
they're
into
gonna
mother
get
bumps.
Right on that.
Rob is super
Somebody,
into mother bumps.
You know, I got ideas.
I'm an ideas man.
What if we did this?
Somebody reproduce the show after we release it with Glenn Danzig's mother interspersed throughout.
And also just upload
That's the request.
right through our RSS feed and on our website.
Oh, yeah.
Just do that, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're going to have to guess the password, though, because Rob's not going to lift that finger.
No, you got it. It's fine.
It's not Hell Yeet.
It's
I'll
1,
tell
2,
you that
3,
now.
4, 5, 9, 12.
It's not Hell Yeet 6969. I'll tell you that right now.
Shit.
Pumpkins.
If Justin
That's what-
ran all of our socials and like the website and like all of the passwords would be so easy to guess.
All right, I'm gonna.
It's true.
Dude,
69dudes.com.
I'm about to say our password. Are you ready? Here it comes. It's that sound bump. That sound bump is our password.
Spell it.
Yep.
Spell it.
Speak, friend, and enter.
No, Hell Yeet 6969 is the password for my bank account. So.
Ah, oof. Yep.
Justin
Lucky
banks
for us,
at,
there's nothing there.
He banks at douche bank, right?
Damn, Bob.
Tiny Dick Bank. That's
not
TD
even very
Bank for those
clever.
keeping track.
Come on.
Deutsche Bank. I don't know. I thought it was somewhat
Dude.
clever. Let's continue.
Ah.
Let's continue.
Oh, I didn't make the connection.
It's fine. I don't know. So, do we have a Cooter? Are we going to say no on this one?
I don't see a strong candidate here, really.
Yeah, the demon was the closest, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
tough
like
to book 'em.
arrogance, manipulation, and attire. I don't want to book somebody just to get my stats up here. This ain't The Wire.
Yeah. Not yet.
This ain't the
So,
wire.
this ain't buy bust, gentlemen. All right. So I'm gonna say no Cooters. Just some creepers on parole here.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree with that. Sounds good. Let's carry on with the show and let our hair down. It is time to talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what have you been watching?
It's been quite a time since we did this segment. We skipped the last 2 episodes because 1, we were dead, and 2, we had to do a retrospective. So I've watched quite a bit, but I'm going to limit it down here to only a few things. So on Christmas Eve, as per usual, I watched It's a Wonderful Life. It's a great movie. I don't think I need to convince too many people, but those of you who know who you are, you're wrong. It's a great movie. I finished up The Queen's Gambit finally. That was an exciting trip. I think that show is so fucking great on so many levels. Anya Taylor-Joy is spectacular, but it wasn't what I expected, though. I thought it was a little bit like, it was less of a, I don't know, like it feels like less happened than I expected to happen. You know, I feel like there was going to be a, not so much action oriented, but like a much bigger devolution of character at some point than we got. So it was more tethered in reality than I was expecting is probably what I'm looking at. I liked it quite a bit. It's amazing. Let's see. I watched New Year, New You for the first time, the Into the Dark episode on Hulu, which I both enjoyed and also hated on some level. That movie does a lot of legwork to get you to hate people, and it succeeds at that. I think it's also making a pretty ham-fisted statement about the influencer culture and things like that. And the way it ends, I was very much not a fan of. The very ending. I don't want to spoil that, but there's that. I also watched Chris Gethard has made a resurgence on a live stream platform called Planet Scum, where a bunch of like social distance shows are produced by stand-ups and improv people from New York and all over. He did a show just last night that I used to escape from the problems of the world called What's in the Box. And it's my first time watching the show. He's had the same box for X number of episodes, and people just call in and they get a certain number of guesses to guess what's in the box. And if they guess it right, they get like $1,000 or some shit. So that was a lot of fun. It's tough to describe why it's a lot of fun. It's just like nonsense going on, and it's just totally flying by the seat of their pants. And then last but not least, I'm kind of late to this party, I think, but I discovered a YouTuber called Scott the Woz, who is a gaming, like sort of nostalgic gaming YouTuber mostly. And I watched a lot of his shit. He's like, it's very funny. It's funny shit. It's very much in the realm of the angry video game nerd, but a little bit, I would say, more smartly written and less scatological. Just a little bit smarter than that in terms of the writing, and a lot of good like analysis that you don't get from other mainstream YouTubers that I'm aware of anyway, covering shit like the Wii U years, which I totally skipped and shit like that. I don't know. I liked it. I like that guy. And, you know, I'm just going to stop it there because I'm talking a lot. Tired of it.
Talking.
Sounds like some solid watching, Randy.
Yeah.
Juice, what have you been watching?
Dude, it's been so long since we did this segment. I could talk about shit I was watching on the plane ride. Watch Uncut Gems. Finally, solid. A24, good stuff. I watched a French movie called Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is a movie Yeah, it was really good. It was a movie I've been meaning to watch for a hot minute now, but anytime I'd find it in Korea, it's a French film. And so, of course, all the subtitles would be in Korean. So I just couldn't watch it. But it's good. It's a really simple yet beautiful, well-crafted film. It's essentially the idea is it's in France in like 1800, 1700, something like that. Olden times. And there's a woman who's like proposed to be married to this guy. Her sister was supposed to marry him, but she committed suicide, so she didn't have to marry him. And so now so now this girl is like just kind of stuck with this guy. But before he will accept the marriage, you know, it's back when like parents would arrange it and get money and shit. Before he'll accept the marriage, he wants to see her portrait. So she refuses to like sit for a portrait because you couldn't just sit back then. So in order to like sneak it, her mom hires a woman, which is not, you know, of the time, you know, you get like.
Was she on fire?
Well, no, she goes to as like a companion. She's like, but it's like sneaky. She's like, you're just going to have to memorize her face and draw her and like her portrait from that. And so it's kind of this tale about, you know, I don't know, like kind of lying a little bit, but also feeling bad about it because you get to know the person like, oh shit, yeah, this really sucks. And it was good. It's a simple film. It's beautiful though. I liked it. Bob, I watched a movie with Bob. Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Which is
how does it hold up to our hell experience, would you say?
Well, it was a movie that I had never seen before. Jason doesn't actually, I guess he maybe goes to hell at the end, spoiler, but oh my God. Jason Voorhees takes on being a parasitic worm that transfers through people's mouths and kills.
You're a monster.
It was the equivalent of like Halloween 6. I kept saying that. I was like, of this franchise, this is like the Halloween 6, where just shit does not make a lick of sense.
Or just anything to extend the life of the franchise, pretty much.
Yeah,
except they didn't have Paul Rudd to save it, unfortunately.
Oh, God, they had brain worms.
Yeah, okay.
I also watched two movies. One that Rob had recommended on his top 10 that I had not seen. It was called After Midnight. It was a movie made in Florida, really independent. It was actually his number one. I liked it. Good. Like it was impressive for such a low budget film. It's very Florida. And is
that a compliment or?
I mean, it's just very distinct in its like Florida roots. And like this guy is a proud kind of Floridian, but
you're gonna say proud boy. What?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if it would have made my top 10, but it was impressive for the budget that he had. And there was some shining moments in it. And I also watched a movie that Randy had recommended, Run. Was that the name of it?
Yeah.
With Sarah Paulson. And that one I did enjoy a lot. That one was a pretty impressive, tense, emotional film. So good recommend on Randy, pretty solid recommend from Bob. That's about it. Yeah,
I win.
Whatever. I did. I watched Run with Juice, and I wanted to piggyback on that real quick. That movie's baller.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's on Hulu.
It's great, right?
Definitely check it out. Sarah Paulson killing it. Her daughter, I don't know the actress's name, does a really fucking great job. Good.
Yeah, she does.
Good movie. Check that shit out.
Oh shit! One more thing, since Rob was piggybacking.
Kiera Allen is her name.
Thank you.
On our Slack, we have a YouTube tab where people can post like YouTube content, and somebody, I don't remember exactly who it was. Maybe it was Miles. I don't know. I could be fucking it up. So, was a channel called Meat Canyon. Did any of you guys watch that when it was posted?
No, I didn't.
No, I missed that one.
Okay. I checked this shit out. The one that he posted was called Secret Formula, and it was one of the most recent ones that come out of the time. But what this guy does is he's got a very disturbing. It kind of reminds me in a way of kind of like Garbage Pail Kids, where it's like really dirty and grimy. But he takes like old cartoons. So SpongeBob SquarePants, Magic School Bus, Dragon Ball Z. He's got two that are, I think, some of his biggest ones that are based on Ed, and Eddie. And this shit they're short, but they are disturbing.
This was from Kelvin. I'm looking at
Kelvin said they are fucked up. But I find them very intriguing and hypnotizing in a really terrible
I've seen
way.
this kind of thing before. I'm looking at the image, the stock image of the or whatever, the thumbnail, and I've seen this sort of art before. It's kind of like a big thing to just take like beloved characters and go like total John Krzyzewski on it and just Ren and Stimpy the shit out of it until it's like horrific.
But even the content and the videos, there's always this very disturbing sexual tension going on in them too. They're so bizarre. Yeah. They're so bizarre, but I don't know. Check that shit out. It's weird. I want y'all to check it out just so I can talk with y'all. It's so weird.
That sounds like Cooter bait to me.
It's weird, man. Check it out. Sorry, Bob. I'll swing it back to you.
Oh, swinging it on back. I appreciate it. Some other shit that I've been watching. I revisited The Game with Michael Douglas. Have you guys seen that?
That's a good movie, man. Yeah.
Oh, that's been
I love that movie coming up.
That's a fun ass movie. Mikey had watched it recently and he was talking about it, and I was like, man, I haven't seen that since like the movie theater. So I threw it on. I watched that. Fucking Michael Douglas kills it. It's a fun ass movie. It's about Michael Douglas. He's like super wealthy, successful businessman. It's his birthday. His brother's like, I don't know what to get a man that has everything. So he buys him this like sort of quote experience. Groupon. Yeah, and it's basically it's this company that's
basically
like
the proto Groupon.
Yeah, this company like interviews you and they give you a physical and like a psych eval and ask you all these questions and like find out all about you and your personality and what your life is lacking, and then they create this like experience that just sort of happens in and around your everyday life, and you may or may not realize what's like real life and what's part of this game that's happening, and you just sort of like interact with people in these bizarre ways, and you sort of have you experience something and learn about yourself. It's sort of like the point of the whole thing, and Michael Douglas goes through hell, and it's just a really, really enjoyable ride. It's a thrill ride for sure. Recommend it. Also, did not know Michael Douglas had a form of throat cancer that I guess he got via performing cunnilingus and contracted HPV. Mikey was telling me about this, and he's like, yeah, he got cancer from going down on women. And I was like, dumb joke, haha.
Bob,
and I looked it up, and it's real.
Bob, no.
It's
Bob,
completely
no.
real.
Bob,
damn,
no.
what?
So, all right, Michael Douglas.
Man, I'm going to think twice before laying into the bush from now on.
Laying into the bush.
Doubt it.
You know me too well, old friend.
From what I hear,
serious doubts about that statement.
Yeah, from what I hear, Korea's lousy with it, so don't go there, Randy. never go there. What else have I been watching? I watched Elephant Man for the first time.
Elephant Mang?
Elephant Mang, directed by David Lynch, from 1980, starring Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt. John Hurt playing the Elephant Man, and he's got big, heavy prosthetic makeup on. You can't really tell that it's John Hurt. He's got this sort of weird effect that he's doing with his voice when he talks. You really can't tell it's him under there. He like disappears into the character. Super impressive performances from both him and Hopkins, and it's got like a dash of weird Lynchian stuff happening, but it's not like hardcore Lynchian. This is like very much a linear story. So it didn't immediately like just get on my nerves. And I'm like, why won't he just tell me a story? He's
just tell me what to think, David.
Don't spoon feed it to me or anything, but like it is actually a linear story, and it was easy for me to sort of fall into. The freaking score on this movie is incredible.
What's it called?
The score, the music is incredible.
No. What's it called?
The Elephant Man.
The Elephant Man?
Okay, I missed that part.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the music's fantastic. It's got this like carnival kind of theme happening that repeats throughout the movie. It's super awesome. It's definitely a recommend for me. It's a bummer of a movie. It is super bummer. So keep that in mind. But really, really good movie. The only other thing I wanted to mention is I've been making my way through The Mandalorian with the old ball and chain. She's been showing it to me. That show's freaking great, man. Just started
humble brag over here.
Started season 2. That
you genderizing your fetish materials, Bob?
I have.
He's been taken, ladies. I know you guys have been.
The ball goes in the
shit out of our board.
And the chain goes on the wrists. You just kind of walk around town now.
Right.
No kink shame.
Right. That's how I'm living my life. The Mandalorian kicks ass. Watch it. I recommend it. That's all. That's all I've been watching.
Well, all right. We watched a lot.
We did, for sure. We got one more segment to get to. It is our Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave us a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. I think we just got one this week. Kelvin.
Hey, guys, what's up? This is Straight Chillin' Mailman Kelvin calling in again. Congratulations on your 300th episode. That's so freaking amazing. You guys do a wonderful job doing what you guys do. Nonstop entertainment. Calling in a question, and it is, you guys, well, obviously you guys watch movies other than horror movies. So my question is, what's your favorite movie that you watched for the first time in 2020? It doesn't have to be a new release, but just in general, sometimes classics like pass us by and we don't even freaking, I don't know how sometimes we don't see a movie like Raging Bull or something like that 30 years, into its existence, 40 years into its existence. So, like, for example, my favorite movie that I saw for the first time this year is Raging Bull, because it was a really good movie and I just didn't see it somehow. Anyways, great job, guys. Keep chilling. Love y'all. Peace.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm trying really hard to come up with some of them. Thanks, Kelvin, by the way. One that jumps up. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the first thing that comes to my mind was I'd never seen Karate Kid before this year, so that was kind of a big,
really.
Big
Yeah, I remember him when
We're
he
not
brought
talking-
it up, and once you've been watching, that blew our fucking minds.
Yeah,
First time seeing Jaden Smith go at it, huh?
yeah. The only Karate Kid, the one with Jaden Smith,
The important Karate Kid.
that's the one I
Yeah,
saw.
and Jackie Chang.
Jackie Chang Mang. Yep. No.
Jackie Chang Mang.
Chang Mang.
Bordering on racist. All right.
Yeah, there's some weird racial.
What'd you think of Karate
things going
Kid?
on there?
You like that?
Turns out it's pretty good.
Yeah,
I
it is
mean,
pretty good.
That's not
Now you can watch
surprising.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
now you can sweep the leg.
Right? Yeah, enjoyable. Definitely enjoyable. Duh. Everybody likes it.
Now you know how to crush children.
I've got like 2 or 3 that I came up with. Like, this is like, we're coming off the dome here. I didn't pre-read this question. So, I mean, I watched Ready or Not for the first time this year. I was a little late on that. I really enjoyed that. And I actually watched it multiple times since I watched it the first, which was early in the year. But probably better movies. I did have the Criterion channel this year, so I get to really fart sniff it up here for a second. I watched 2 movies from that I really, really enjoyed that were not in the realm of horror. One was Paths of Glory by Kubrick. Paths of Glory is a movie that's... I watched it specifically because there's a David Simon segment on the Criterion channel of him talking about why that's a great movie and why it helped inspire him or helped inspire his writing in The Wire, because it's about, people with ambition doing bad things that are bad for people, that get people killed in order to further their ambitions. People that don't really know what the fuck they're doing, but they know how to grease the wheels in just the right way. But it's set in World War I, and it's like about people trying to make rank within the military. I believe it was Great Britain, but I could be wrong. That was earlier in the year. And then I also watched The Bicycle Thief, and I forget who directed that. But that's a story about a guy in, God damn it, it's been a while as well, but he's in a country that's being rebuilt after the war. I believe it's somewhere in Poland or somewhere,
Austria
in France
or something. Yeah.
Some shit like that. Yeah, like they're being rebuilt, and there's not a lot of money going around. People are fighting for work. This guy hasn't had work for a while. It's him and his young son and his wife. And he finally gets the opportunity to get a job. They call his name from a role or whatever. He goes up and they say, "You've got a bicycle, right?" And he's like, yeah. And then they give him the job. And it turns out that he has pawned his bicycle. Or no, yeah.
It gets stolen, right?
It gets stolen. Of course it does. It's called fucking Bicycle Thief.
He pawns it.
I'm confusing myself here. Yeah, no, he gets it stolen or whatever, and the whole rest of the movie is him trying to get it back, just following all these paths or whatever. And it is a really, really compelling movie. It's tough to put any other word on it without spoiling shit.
He's in Rome, actually, so he's Italian.
Is it Rome? Okay. So yeah, I think those are probably the 2 that jump out the most. They were just really, really good. They're character study driven, or like driven, but like Bicycle Thief is very character driven. I'm sorry. Yeah. And Paths of Glory is way more about like systemic problems within, places of power. And I think both are really, really interesting. So there's my fart sniff. Everybody enjoy the smell of my fart. And Juice, how about you?
Smells great.
Damn. I have 3 that stick out in my mind, actually. I had a very cultured year. The first one is Rosemary's Baby, which actually we covered back in November, not too long ago. I had never seen it before. Just never seen Rosemary's Baby before.
Horror, bro.
I know, and I really enjoyed it. The other 2 are 2 Japanese films that I watched. I got on this kick where I was watching some Japanese horror and then some like old school Japanese horror. So just a lot of Japanese horror, actually. But I was watching some old school stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Kelvin was asking about non-horror. Am I wrong about that?
I did not get that from his question.
I think he said it didn't have to be horror.
Okay. All right. Go ahead then. Sorry. I was not looking at my horror. I was not thinking about horror for that reason. So my bad.
So one of them was that anthology Kaidan, which has got like 4 different tales. It's long as shit, but it's like a play. Even in like the way like they do a lot of the backdrops, it's a very beautiful movie. The like cinematography and the special effects, like the paintings they do this on the sets, that I don't know, they're like so beautiful. So that was a really interesting, kind of like highly regarded Japanese horror-ish film. And then another one is called, it was like from the 60s, I think, 64. Onibaba. Have you guys ever seen that one?
No, I've wanted to.
Yeah,
I think that's a Criterion too. I think both of those are.
Yeah, and that one also, this one was black and white, so pretty stark difference from the other one, but it was also very beautiful and very interesting story and something I just like really enjoyed at the time. And so, yeah, those are my 3 from this year. All like older films from the 60s or 70s. Yeah.
some good shit to be found. If I was counting horror films, and I mean, I'm only counting this as a horror because we covered it on the podcast, but I wanted to bring up Seconds as well. That fucking movie rocked my dick. Yeah. I like that movie a lot.
That was good. And Perfect Blue, if we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Damn.
There was a lot we covered on our podcast that I was pretty into.
Perfect Blues.
Yeah, Possessor, of course. Like, yeah, there were quite a few good ass movies that came out that I saw for the first time this year.
Good call.
Not necessarily new.
Also, Godzilla. Didn't we cover Godzilla this year?
We did cover Godzilla.
I had never seen Godzilla before.
True.
Shit.
Me either.
Damn.
First time. Man.
What a fucking good year
not
for
my first
our
time.
cast, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, we covered quite a bit, and not all of it was Cannibal Confederates level.
Thank God. Thank God.
Randy always comes back to that shit.
It's easier to say than the mixed up zombies one. So it's just
cool. Thanks for calling in, Kelvin. Again, if you're listening and want to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about our first Patreon pick of the first quarter of 2020. We're talking about a movie called Shocking Dark. This one was chosen by Thomas. And as I understand, this is on Tubi for free, so it's pretty easy to find. Also, I think Severin put this out on Blu-ray. You can pick it up on Blu-ray if you want to do that. It's from 1989. It's also known as Terminator 2, but it's like this weird Italian knockoff that's like trying to be Terminator 2. It's bizarre. Directed by Bruno Mattei, who's notorious for making these like weird Italian spin-offs and sequels of American blockbusters. So check out Shocking Dark from 1989. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling. On Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. Send us an email to our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, hit us up on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link to join in. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.